Hello, it's September 9th, and we're going to do this Piney News update right here by the Suffolk County North Complex. Coming up, you will see footage from this hearing, a number of speakers. I unfortunately missed the first part of it because I was running a little late, but we still got to hear a lot of great speakers, and the consensus is all the same. These cuts are going to be terrible. And what's worse now, if you look at yesterday's Newsday, there was an article in it saying that Steve Bellone has suggested cutting much more next year, including more bus routes and all of the Sunday service next year. Absolutely preposterous. Steve Bellone is a really obnoxious little prick, that thinks he can just get away with this. And I mean, all these people that have spoken here have pretty much made their voices known. And Sunday service, I mean, there's a lot. Some of the Sunday routes are starting to do very well now. We need to keep that. We need to increase the state funding. But the way Suffolk County went about this whole thing was wrong. Last year, they knew this was occurring last year. And one thing you'll hear a theme in the current speakers is that, why are we waiting now to have the hearings? To the last minute. Cuts are happening in a month. Why are we waiting to the last minute? It's not right. So first you're going to hear my testimony, and I was not very nice, and I was very blunt to the point, but I kind of brought up the fact that this whole big picture here, trying to force the poor off Long Island, this is what it's all about. That's what they're trying to do. And I suggested other ways for them to, instead of the first thing they should be cutting, they should be looking at other ways of raising money. Look at all these Audis and Mercedes and all these fancy cars on the road. These people will have money. Seriously, just look at all these fancy cars. Mercedes. Just look at all these rich people. God. Oh my God, it's just one luxury car after another. Man. Why don't we raise their taxes and the cost to buy their luxury cars to fill the budget, instead of stranding bus riders who can't afford to pay 20 times as much for a taxi? And I was not very nice about the taxis either. They're crooks. I have no sympathy for them whatsoever. So now listen to my testimony, and then afterwards you'll hear the testimony from all the other people. All right. It's unfortunate that there's no media here. No Newsday, no News 12.
No News 12, they couldn't make it.
They couldn't make it. It shows you how much the mainstream media cares about bus riders. And it's, they should be here both days, though. That's the thing. As someone who is unable to handle driving, the cuts being proposed will now deny me access to yet more areas of Long Island. Some people, some people think, oh, some disabilities are invisible. I have mental illness. People think, oh, he looks normal. I have mental illness. I can't handle driving. I have anxiety disorder. It is wrong to take a page from Nassau County and cut the bus funding. And that gave us Nice Bus, which really has been anything but nice. We have breakdowns. We have bad maintenance. They cut service. It's not nearly as good as the MTA. And that's because Nassau County said, well, let's balance the budget on the backs of the bus riders. But even there, they're using mini buses on some of the lighter routes. I don't understand why you can't do that. It's almost as if you wish the poor citizens would just leave Long Island. I take serious issue with several of the routes proposed for elimination, especially the 5A, the S71, and the S90. There's no alternative to some of these routes. Places like Rocky Point, Sound Beach, and the senior developments in Ridge will now be left stranded. And the S90, it's the only route serving West Hampton, along with Quogue, which is also having its other route cut, the 10DE. Instead, I would have proposed cutting routes that have alternatives. There are other routes out there. Somebody brought up the S31 that goes to Newsday. That carries no one. I never see anybody on the bus. The S76, same deal. That serves Rich Stony Brook. So I guess they get to keep their bus while all the poor people in Mastic get left stranded when the S71 is cut. All right? I would... Right. Another example of why they just want to get rid of the poor people here. It's all about the rich people. I see Audis, Mercedes, and here we're talking about, oh, the county's in budget trouble. Why don't you raise their fucking taxes? Raise their taxes instead of hurting these poor people. they can afford a freaking Mercedes. They can afford to pay a little more in taxes. So, I think that some routes should have had their service reduced, but not eliminated. All right, and why not use a smaller bus? Say, oh, the S25 and the S35. How about they serve a similar area? Why don't you just combine them into one route? I have maps and diagrams and stuff that there's been no specifics on how you're going to reroute other routes to serve certain areas. How about doing that? The S25 and the S35 are important routes. Keep them both, but use a minibus on there because they don't get a lot of ridership. It's better than no bus at all. And what about the 7A? That goes by the 63. Why not reroute the 63 to serve Ronkonkoma? How about that? The S90 is an important route. You get rid of that, I have no ride to Quogue. No ride to the Quogue Wildlife Refuge. I like to hike. Now I'm not going to be able to go there. What about the people who work in that area? I mean, the S90 should be rerouted to go run between Hampton Bays via West Hampton Beach and then up to Riverhead. That way, you're going to have an alternative. I don't know if any of you guys have even taken the S92. It's crush loaded, all right? How about providing an alternative? Then the S90 would do very well. And then you'd have more riders on it, and then it wouldn't be such a losing route, you cannot just leave people stranded like this. It's almost as if no thought was given if alternative service was even available. And while I know a fare increase would be hard for people, it's better than some of these cuts. The cuts should always be a last resort, a very last resort. These cuts are going to put people onto already overcrowded routes, like the S33, S58, S66, and S92. You're leaving people at the mercy of price gouging taxis. And let me tell you, these taxis are crooks. They rob people. They literally take advantage when the bus doesn't show up. They troll. I see it in Nassau, and I see it out here. They come by, and they try to rob these people who can least afford it. And when I hear on the news that the taxis are getting robbed, I have no sympathy for them. None at all, because they deserve it with what they're doing. Long Island has a chronic traffic and pollution problem, and these cuts will only make the problem worse. You really need to consider some of these other ideas that so many of these other people have given, instead of just rushing this whole thing through. But I guess that's what you want, because you don't want the people to really speak up. Well, I'm sorry. They're here, they're speaking up, and we're not going away. I've lived on Long Island 40 years, and I'm not going to be forced off my Long Island because these rich people think they can force us out by cutting our services. Hell no. Thank you for your time.
I'm a Suffolk County retiree. I was here last year and attended public hearings and the operating budget joint committee meetings in September through November. Same budget deficit problem and the same anticipated cuts. I listened as disabled Suffolk County taxpayers, blind, some in wheelchairs, some mentally challenged, some with guide dogs, all managed to get here through public buses and actually begged their elected officials to maintain their bus routes. They believe in Suffolk County government for fair and just solutions to your, not theirs, your budget deficit problems. Many of these taxpayers hold jobs, even with their disabilities. And last year, they made it very clear, without the public buses, for which, by the way, they paid a ride, many could not work and continue to contribute to society. And yet, when all was said and done, I was brought to tears several times. Hearings were over. The legislature voted to cut the bus routes. It was as if not one of them heard a single word. In this day and age, in the 21st century, shouldn't we be encouraging the expansion of the use of public transportation, not cutting services? Those who spoke are not political or community leaders, but they are just as important as you and I, probably more so, because unlike you and I, many of them were born disabled. They do not enjoy the personal freedoms we have, and we take advantage. Earlier in this meeting, Legislator McCaffrey spoke of buying these people cars. I know he meant it as a joke, but many are too disabled to drive, or maybe with DWIs and in recovery they can drive. Certainly people with guide dogs can't drive. And while we are again holding public hearings to discuss ways that we together can patch this budget deficit, we now appear to have a new legislator who is seeking $100,000 to replace metal guardrails to wooden rails out east because of the, quote, iconic view, unquote. $100,000 can go far in maintaining public bus routes to save the taxpayers. That's just one example. I could have 100. Mr. Bellone has declared Suffolk to be in a state of fiscal emergency for its 5th straight year. The same 5 years Bellone has served as county executive. Maybe we don't have the best and the brightest. If cutting services to the poor and the disabled is the best this county can do, but County Executive Bellone is not the only leader of Suffolk County government. I have faith in the 18-member legislature because they have equal governing powers with the county executive. The legislature can make a difference and remember what being a public service is all about, serving the public. And it costs money to serve the public. I'm not talking about six-figure salaries for people up at the top. I'm talking about serving the public, taxpayers who pay taxes and deserve to be served. So I ask our legislators, and we have 2 here, to take the lead. Surely there are other areas to cut other than the public bus routes, which actually alleviates highway congestion and improves the environment. No one should have to beg. I watched people beg last year, and I'm watching them beg again. Public transportation should be expanded in a progressive society. Budget cuts have to be made at the top, not from the poor and disabled, and certainly not from our students. They are our future. I almost went to the courthouse. I put 4 children through college, and they didn't always have a car. Sometimes they had to take a bus. So we all suffer. Thank you, sir.
Executive Director of the Long Island Federation of Labor. I would just say and try to summarize the remarks that the program you're putting forward is the wrong direction for Suffolk County to be going. We can look at this from the standpoint of workers, of employees, of union members, and on the front lines are the bus drivers. This is going to impact probably at least 48 drivers, which means 48 lives, which means 48 families, all impacted in Suffolk County because we can't find a better way to manage our bus system so that we have to make cuts that are really somewhat insignificant when we look at the larger picture of the budget. There's an impact as well on other employees, which means there's an impact on business throughout the county. We heard about Stony Brook. Those are union members, those are workers. Those are one of the largest employers in Suffolk County is Stony Brook. To operate efficiently, particularly at a hospital, you've got to get people there. So every small ripple of the service we provide has a pretty big impact on the way they do business. We look anecdotally, we know many stories of particularly healthcare workers, many of whom are not high paid, who come long distances to work in eastern Long Island at the hospitals. I know one story of a very good conscientious worker who lost her job because there was just no way for her to get there on the weekend because of the bus service. She'd get there, but get there late and was terminated, even though this was a great employee who wanted to work, and sometimes the accommodations are not made. Now, I think this really argues for the Sunday expansion that we did already. It was done for good reasons, and you're to be commended for what you did in expanding the service. We have to go in that direction. This kind of flies in the face of the economic development that we talk about with the county all the time. We talk about smart growth, we talk about economic development, we talk about trying to get people in these corridors, moving in the corridors where we have our big institutions of research, Brookhaven Lab, Stony Brook, Cold Spring Harbor Lab, where we have pharmaceuticals that are providing new kinds of jobs, where we are able to move people between these corridors down to railroads, wherever they need to go. That's a direction for a dynamic county. It's a way that we're redesigning our communities and putting a lot of money and effort into the redesign, the smart growth, and this sends, not sends the wrong message, it doesn't get people where they need to go, it also signals to people outside the county that we can't manage our problems. We have said many times, and we don't act like we don't understand the financial problems of the county. We will say this to legislators, we'll say to the county executive, say to anybody, we're there to help. The Long Island Federation will go to Albany, go to Washington, anything we can do to get more support for the services we provide.
Today, babysitting the grandkids. However, I kind of figure, you know what? Many of the people that are here today, the disabled, were able to make it on a bus. I can make it in my car with 2 kids. So, anyway, I can be brief. I have learned that the 7E, 7D, S71, and the S90 will be eliminated in my district. I have a young man in my district who let me know he takes the bus to Stony Brook. He's in his senior year, and I know you've heard this from me already. However, this is his senior year in Stony Brook to get his bachelor's degree. What are we going to tell him? You can't graduate because you can't get a bus? That's just not fair to him. I see that the bus transportation to the community college, to Brookhaven Town Hall, are all being eliminated. I know that the S66 and the S68 will still exist, but I have had constituents call and they say those buses are just not accessible to them. I have constituents who have disabilities who are not going to be able to make it to that nearest bus stop. One lady called, she just had surgery, she's concerned about the fact that, she said, I can't afford the SCAT bus. I can use the public bus, and now that public bus that goes down my block is no longer going to exist. She needs that bus. We're talking about Connect Long Island, and let's talk about Connect Long Island. What good is Connect Long Island? So why don't we just scrap that? If we're not going to have buses, what good is Connect Long Island or trying to even work on one? So let's look at that in our economic development to create these programs and to do all these wonderful things. And we hear the county exec talk about job creation. Well, killing the bus system is a job killer. I have constituents who have to go to the industrial site. There may not be a lot of them, but they have to go to the industrial site across from the 7th precinct. If this bus doesn't exist for them and they can't get to work, they lose their job. They're not high-paid jobs. So what are we doing? We're going to kill a bus transportation system, and now we're going to put more people on social services. I believe that's what's going to happen. And let me remind you about social services. And I'm not saying this is the county's fault. I know the position that we're in. Nassau County gets far more money than we do. The county executive's problem is that he played chicken with the state. Well, guess what? We all know who's going to win when we play chicken. They're going to win. And they did. And that's where we are today. So, I do ask the people in the room, I know Roger was here, we need to go to the state and say we need our fair share. And one state representative said to me, well, you don't have the ridership. And I said, well, maybe we would have the ridership if we got our fair share. And we certainly did. So that was not an excuse, and that was not an acceptable answer. Well, let me go back to social services. The social service program, the safety net program, is about $70 million. That's what many of these people are going to wind up on. What happened was the state took away their share. It's a state mandate. It was a 50-50 share. And I know Mr. Kubek is here, and he hears it from me often. But the state has reduced their share to 29%. And we have to burden the Suffolk County taxpayers, their burden is 71%. So what could potentially be our increase if we do not have a transportation service and people can't get to their jobs? So let's try and come up with a better way to run our bus system. Let's sit down with the bus companies. let's talk to them and say, how can we make this work better? You know, I've talked about creating hubs in the various times. In the Sherry Mastics community, we should create hubs by train stations so that people can connect to the train station. And how is my young man who's going to graduate with a bit of luck this year in Stony Brook, what am I going to go back and tell him? And that's my question for you is, how do I tell him to get to Stony Brook? I don't have an answer for him. How does he make it for his classes? I don't have an answer for him. So let's kind of draw back. I know we have fiscal problems. I know that we're going to be working on our budget soon. But we have to be able to come up with a plan. And I think working with the industry, and I think we need the state to know this is a transportation crisis in Suffolk County. It's not a problem, it's a crisis. Thank you.
I am president of the Belmont Lake Civic Association, and I'm here on behalf of some of my residents. Are they going to be impacted by not being able to visit places they need to get in the town of Babylon, medical appointments, x-rays? And what concerns me is that every time there has to be a cut in any of the programs the government offers, it always impacts people who can't afford to cut at all. Those are people who are handicapped, those are people who are in transit to schools and other facilities like that. Why is it that we always have to be the victim of these cutbacks? Surely, you people who are running these businesses and these government can come up with other things that will lessen the impact on the people who are going to be impacted by these cuts. I was looking at the chart, and the 71 bus has a daily ridership of 159 people. And I looked at the rest of them, and that particular route has more than the other ones, but it's being cut. There's a hospital there, a Stony Brook Hospital. There is a college there, university. These are people who are going to be out tomorrow, and now they're having difficulty today in the 21st century trying to get an education or trying to get medical help. Surely you can come up with a better plan rather than to cause this kind of strife on the people who need these services. That's all I have to say. You need to think about it again.
I am 74 years old, and I've lived on Long Island, bought my house in 1986, so it'll be 30 years December the 9th. I have never driven a car in my life. Fortunately, one of the things I considered when I bought my house was that there was a bus nearby, S25, a block and a half away. In 2014, I was advised by one of the doctors I saw that I needed hip replacement. Well, I'm trying to avoid that, and I think I've found another solution. It's called stem cell injection. So, in the meantime, I just walk. In order for me to get to the Babylon Town Hall to meetings, I would have to take the S25 down to South Bay Mall, wait a half hour for it to come back, then go up to Straight Path, get the S33 down to, I think it's Wellwood, and then walk probably 2.5 miles to get to the town hall. I can't do that. And then walk 2.5 miles back to get to the S33 to try to get back home again. Now, all I have to do is take the S25 down to South Bay Mall and take the S35 up to the Babylon Town Hall. This means I'm not going to go to any more town hall meetings because the S35 is one of those to be cut. And the next time you cut, it might be the S25. And then I'll have to stay home. The good news is I'm self-employed. I'm an executive recruiter, head hunter. And I work out of my house, so I don't have to catch a bus to go to work, you know. But I do have to catch buses. And that's the only way, that and taxis, the only way and trains if I have to go someplace really far, the only way I have of getting around. There's one thing that I noticed that was missing on your list of buses. I call it the Newsday bus, S31. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the S31. It runs twice a day from Newsday down to, what's the town? Copay. And it runs in the morning, and then it runs again late in the afternoon, thanks to taking employees to Newsday. I actually rode this bus once. I had a medical appointment at the fire department down in Copay. And I looked at the schedule, and it was perfect for me. My appointment was like 6 o'clock in the evening. So I actually ridden the S31. The S31 that I was on that day had no other passengers. It was just me and the bus driver. But the S31 is Newsday's employee bus. Why do we have to support Newsday? I don't understand that. It's called politics, isn't it? So I don't know whether to say $10 or $110,000, but why does Newsday get this service when the S35, which goes in, and the only bus that goes near the Babylon Town Hall, is scheduled to be decapitated? I want to know why the S31 is not on this list. S31. That's basically it. By the way, the S35, according to the presentation Mr. Darnell made, it's $257,000, which is not a lot in comparison to the $4 million that they're looking for. So, but I'm more worried now about the S25 because I think that's next, because it doesn't have a lot of riders either.
Testifying today on behalf of Councilwoman Valerie M. Cartwright, who represents over 80,000 residents in the 1st Council District of Brookhaven, which encompasses Stony Brook, Oldfield, Poquat, Setauket, East Setauket, Belterre, Port Jefferson Station, and Terryville. The Councilwoman speaks on behalf of many concerned community stakeholders and those who utilize the Suffolk County bus routes under consideration for elimination. Many regular bus route riders rely on the bus as their primary form of transportation. These riders have built their schedules and arranged day-to-day activities around the existing bus schedules. Eliminating their bus routes with very little warning will have an immediate and profoundly negative impact on their lives and their livelihood. Work schedules, school schedules, doctors and hospital visits will be disrupted. The riders that will be most affected are also the most vulnerable because they do not have other reasonable, affordable transportation alternatives. We are deeply concerned about the impacts to employees, disabled riders, the elderly, and students. In Council District 1, the elimination of bus route S71, Shirley to Stony Brook Railroad, would impact Stony Brook University Hospital community, which, as was stated before, is the largest single-site employer on Long Island. Students, staff, faculty, hospital patients, and medical personnel are among those who currently utilize this route. Other sites that may be impacted greatly by cuts to this route are the Long Island State Veterans Home and Suffolk County Community College. The proposed elimination of the 5A bus line Port Jefferson to Middle Island would also be a burden on community residents. It is our understanding that the routes that may be eliminated are considered the least utilized. As colleagues in government, we do understand the need to find ways to save money to reduce and narrow the budget deficit. However, it is equally important that we continue to ensure community access to government. The S71 bus route is the closest bus route to Brookhaven Town Hall, which services the over 500,000 or 500,000 residents of our town. As such, we would urge Suffolk County Transit to reconsider these bus route eliminations. Bus route elimination should only be undertaken if no other viable alternatives exist. At a minimum, we would request that the community receive significant advance notice of any changes to allow a reasonable period of time to identify alternative travel arrangements. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
I was here yesterday in Riverhead and I spoke. I want to bring up a little different subject and obviously the same thing. Number one, very important, about the S71, but I have other things. But just real quick about the S71. I live in West Islip, which is on the western part of the county. However, I have a lot of medical issues. 4 of my specialists are on Technology Drive. The only bus that goes on Technology Drive is the 71. I can take the 62 and get off at Elmy Road, and then with my open ulcer on the bottom of my foot that my doctor wants to tie to the ceiling because I walk too much, I would have to walk around the corner to Technology Drive 4, 8, and 12 to go to my doctors. It is important, and I'm not the only person. There are a lot of doctors there that serve a lot of people. That 71 should not be cut. And absolutely no buses should be cut. Now let me say one thing, and no disrespect to any of the legislators, because I go to all the transportation meetings and I have nothing but respect for them. But here, very simple, everything's about money. It should be about people, but at the end of the day, it's about money. Okay? Very simple. The county spent $9 million, not $9 million of their money, because the county only has to pay $1 on whatever it is, 10 cents on the dollar. So for this $9 million AVL system, which is supposed to tell Mr. Darnell exactly who's riding the buses and at what time, that's why we got the AVL system. Does anybody realize that that was spent 2 years ago? It is still not operational. It is still not operational. They're working on it. 35 years ago, I took the S40 bus. It has the same schedule from 35 years ago, and actually more than that when I moved in 1968. It still has the same schedule. And it happens to be one of the better schedules because it runs every half hour. What happened to moving the buses because of traffic and everything else? It took 35 years for us to get to this point. 35 years to get to this point. 2 years ago, we had an AVL system that was supposed to be operational. It is still not operational. The main reason I was told the other day, and not to get Mr. McCoy in any kind of trouble, but he specifically told me, this system is bought in Germany. It's a German system. The gentleman that was supposed to come here and fix it is on vacation. Okay? It does not work. Every single day I call up his office and I give him the bus number of the AVL system that is not making announcements on the bus. Do you realize that ADA regulations require the bus driver to make all announcements if there are nothing there? What about the people that can't see? What about the people that can't hear? You're supposed to have both. That is an ADA situation. I want to put something out to the legislators, and no disrespect to any of them, but this system was bought 2 years ago. We also knew with Mr. Bellone's $10 million that he took out of the budget. Why was nothing brought up until now? Every legislator here drilled you people at the meeting of transportation that Mr. Krupke was nice enough to call you down to because of all the emails that I sent out to state legislators, state assembly people, and I'm telling you right now, I just got off the phone with State Senator Boyle, and they're going to try to work out a situation where the State Transportation Committee wants to meet with the County Transportation Committee and have a meeting so they can all work out how we can get money for Suffolk County for transportation. I just got off the phone with them. I'm getting a call back next week. So I'm just letting you know that I appreciate everything that all the legislators are doing, especially the Transportation Committee, but it's a little too late for this whole thing. This should have been done a long time ago. And the minute that Mr. Bellone knocked out that $10 million, you can't expect the state to pick it up on an MTA payroll tax 2 months before this whole thing. Thank you very much.
Linda Aselka, and I was listening to what you were saying at the beginning of this meeting, And I know you had a meeting out in Riverhead. I didn't hear anyone voice their opinion about the S90. The S90 runs along Montauk Highway from Santa Mauritius all the way out to Riverhead. It snakes through Santa Mauritius, East Mauritius, Eastport, West Hampton, and it also goes out through, Clark and into Riverhead. That is the only bus that touch base with East Mauritius and Eastport and West Hampton and Clark. And it's very difficult for the people that live in that area to get around, and without it, it would be a terrible hardship for the people that do use it. I know it's limited, and we are very appreciative of what you've offered us, and we hate to see that go away. We'd love to see it extended, but we know there's not enough people out there to give you the ridership that you want, and it just breaks our heart not to have anything at all. So if you could just consider the S90 for the people who do use it, it is a great need for those who are out there, and it's the only means of transportation they have. And we would hope that you would consider not limiting or eliminating that bus. That's all I have to say on it.
Good afternoon again. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and address this issue. My name is Deborah Hagan. I'm President of Transport Workers Union, Local 252. I represent the majority of the transit operators and maintenance people for Suffolk County Transit System, as well as representing the operators and maintenance for Nassau County Transit. We are opposed to the route cuts. They not only negatively affect at least 48 operators of buses in hours, wages, and benefits, but also the negative impact these cuts will have on the people of Suffolk County. As a union, we will take all necessary steps to enact our 13th city rights, which will result in the county having to compensate the affected operators financially. Local 252 has experienced route elimination in Nassau County. That resulted in such hardship to the community that service had to be restored to the public. Our riders need this transportation for their everyday needs. We have seniors that take these proposed eliminated routes to the grocery store, their doctor's appointments, and to the drugstore for their medicines. We have riders that go to social services, colleges, hospitals, and many that use this mode of transportation to travel to work. Not only will eliminating these routes affect their riders, it will also have a snowball effect on the ridership of other routes that many of these people connect with and decrease the revenue on the remaining routes. There are over 400 riders per day on these routes. That is not an insignificant number of people. Do not put the public through this. I ask you to reconsider and think of the needs of the residents of Suffolk County and not cut any transit routes. I also make a request to the legislators. Leslie Kennedy is the only one I see remaining here at this time. But I make a request that you call for an emergency meeting of the legislators. You passed that budget last year with that cut, knowing that cut was going to cause a hardship on transportation and that there would be eliminations. I understand at the time, you know, as a body of government, you didn't see an alternate route to take. But there are. You've heard numerous people. Yesterday there was other legislators in Riverhead. People spoke and made valid suggestions on what can be done to continue to service the community. These people need their buses, as you know. Your constituents need the buses. Every district needs those buses. They need the connections. Our kids need to go to the colleges. Our seniors need to get their groceries. They need their medicines. Our community needs the buses for transportation. If every single one of the legislators had their cars taken away, and every single county official that has a vehicle available to them didn't have that mode of transportation nor their own personal vehicle, if the Department of Public Works didn't have those trucks and the individuals that fix the roads, put the cones up, had to use their own personal vehicles, we would be shut down immediately. We need to use transportation out there for the people that need it. They don't have the ability to have the cars. They don't have the ability to get themselves from point A to point B without using public transportation. If they had the ability to do so, they would not be standing out at bus stops that do not have the shelters that you have in Nassau County in the rain, in the snow, out in the cold, in the heat, waiting for a bus. They need their transportation. Please reconsider this, and I'm asking the legislature to do something about it. Thank you.
Jack Dinkenberg, I'm with the Long Island Sierra Club, also the Unitarian Church in Bayshore. I'm chair of the Social Justice Committee. If we could tear down this wall right now and look out on Veterans Highway, what do you think you'd see out there?
Traffic.
Bumper to bumper. Monday morning, Monday night, Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, every night of the week. Bumper to bumper, thousands of cars out there. Excuse me? Now, what do you think's coming out of those cars? A lot of crap. They're polluting the air here on Suffolk County. We've never met the federal air pollution standards in Suffolk County. Why? Because of air pollution from cars and businesses and homes. So, who is it that helps us with cleaning up the air? Mass transit, buses. People that ride those buses, they're helping clean the air in Suffolk County. They're my environmental heroes. Thank you very much. We salute the bus riders of Suffolk County. And I think the county should be in the business of trying to promote more and more people to ride the buses.
Yes.
The buses should be better.
Yes.
They should be cleaner. They should be more on time. There should be more of them. They should have stewardesses and stereo and cocktails. So how do you do that? I think people like me who own cars have trouble getting their butt out of their cars and getting onto a bus. We pollute the air. So I think it's up to regulatory agencies, the legislature, the state, wherever. They should make us pay for that. And they should make us support mass transportation. They should make us support the buses. My wife just bought a car a couple of weeks back, and we went in to sign the paperwork, and we thought it was going to be $20,000. But then there was this long list of stuff on the receipt, and you know, $20 for this. They want to charge you for air, and they want to charge you to polish the dashboard. Why can't they throw on $50 and put it toward my environmental assessment fee? And put that money in there, something like that. Or how about when you register your car every couple of years now? I think it's every 2 years now. That bill comes in, it's like $150. You throw on another $10. How many people own cars in the county? It must be 1 million cars on the road that's got to re-register their cars. That's a nice pot of money if you hit everybody up for a little bit. And we owe it. We owe it. People who drive those cars are polluting the air, and they're getting a free ride. They're getting a free ride. It's time to really motivate people to get on the bus. And I think now's the time to do it. Again, all the people at the Sierra Club want to salute the bus riders. They're environmental heroes. And I even ride the bus myself. I go to Suffolk Community College. And, you know, sometimes I like to ride the bus. And it's pretty convenient. And it takes 2 hours where it takes me 15 minutes if I drive my car. But you know what? I feel like I'm part of the community. And I feel a little better about doing it. And if everybody could do it, pitch in, we'd have a great bus system and cleaner air. Thank you.
Two observations I want to make that I thought about before I wrote my testimony. The first one is that it's pretty ironic that the legislators have shown up at these meetings, but where is Mr. Bellone? Why isn't Mr. Bellone here? You know? Why isn't John Schneider here? Why isn't somebody from his office here? I mean, you guys represent the county executive, I understand that, but he's the one where the buck stops, and I don't understand why he's not here. You know?
He doesn't care
It's a
about
question nobody has. You know? So I want to the other thing is that, you know, I use transit in many parts of the country. Okay? And whenever I go somewhere, I have to use public transportation. And, you know, there's two words that haven't been brought up that's used all over the country. Flex routes and demand responsive transportation. Mr. Darnell, you had many statistics yesterday and today. Have you come up with a statistic what it would cost if it was demand responsive transportation instead of fixed route train station? Have you come up with a number what it would be for a flex route versus a fixed route train station? I don't believe so. So that's something we need to entertain. Should have been entertained a year ago. Make it flex route or demand response train station. But I'm going to go slow. My name is Steve Bellone. As an employee of the town of Brookhaven, I'm liaison to the town's disability task force, as well as a provider of information referral to town residents. I'm also a community transit user here in Suffolk County. Like I said yesterday, what I'm going to share is based on observations and input I've received by members of the task force, along with bus drivers, riders, and civic leaders in regard to the county's proposed elimination of routes. The routes that impact Brookhaven town are the 5A, Sound Beach. There are portions of the route that runs parallel to their 62. However, areas like Sound Beach, Leisure Village, Leisure Glen, and Leisure Knoll will no longer receive service. The senior communities will continue to generate more riders as seniors continue to live independently. I've been seeing the statistics talking about aging out in your statistics, Ms. Donnell. You didn't talk about that people are going to grow older and they're going to need the bus, okay? There's no projection into the future. You talk about what's in the past, okay? Without this route, a resident who has to get to the South Shore, who lives east of Sound Beach, will have to either go to Port Jefferson or to Riverhead to get to Corn Health Center, okay? The 5A is the only north-south route in Brookhaven, other than 112 and Riverhead, okay? So, it's going to be great. Also, we didn't talk about greater expenses and costs to the health centers when people cannot show up for their appointments or they don't show up on time. Okay? S71. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else had to say, but I'm going to say this, that you can't measure how many people are going to have to go to the hospital. You can't measure the amount of people who are going to go visit people in the hospital. You can't project how many people are going to be visiting people in the veterans home. You just can't project these numbers. And to go on past numbers is not accurate. Or even when on 7D and 7E, you jeopardize the lives of people on probation. They're going to have to walk across the bridge of William Floyd Parkway, okay, to get to probation. I wish somebody from probation was here, because there's two sites that are affected by the bus routes. Why isn't somebody from probation here talking about, and does everybody know that if you don't take the bus, you have to hitchhike? And you know what the quickest way to lose your probation is? It's hitchhiking, because it's against the law. So you're actually going to cause people to break the law to get to probation. Not you personally, but these cuts will do that. Sorry, Gary. I don't make it personal. My apologies. I realize that you guys, it's like preaching to the choir. So I know that, you know, so I don't want to ever think that I'm projecting this personally. Okay. Okay. I've also spoken, like I said yesterday, to a member of the Long Island delegation from the majority party in the New York State Senate. The message I received was that members of the majority party are not going to consider making modifications to the MTA payroll tax because they want to see the tax eliminated. I have to give credit to Legislator Kennedy. Again, I did this yesterday when she wasn't here, but I want to do it now. As the only person on the other side of the aisle who supported us to go to Albany. She made it clear she wasn't for the payroll tax, but she was there for the people. And I think you deserve a lot of recognition for that. I think you take it up to your husband, or you take it up to you. I don't know which one it is. But he also was a great champion. When he was in the legislature, he was there for me. Every time we needed Suffolk County transportation, he was there. No matter what side of the aisle he was on, he supported public transportation. Okay? The best of my knowledge, at least only Stowe money. Okay? And I think it's important, and I hope the legislation hears this, and I hope that the county executive hears this, is we got to talk about what is our percentage of local share. Not how much we pay, not how much we get, but what is our percentage of local share, and compare the percentages. That's the only way. I went to Senator LaValle's office today, and I requested that he have a roundtable discussion about bringing all the stakeholders together. Senator LaValle is an amazing man at coming up with solutions. Not too long ago, we went to him about legislation to get home health care workers to be able to do more tasks so that people continue to live in their homes independently. Originally, he voted against it. And when we went to ask him why he was against it, he said because to him it sounded like it was a labor law. He wasn't interested in labor. He was interested in what impact it's going to have on people. And he created the roundtable discussion, and 2 weeks before the end of the session, he got that legislation passed. So if there's a man who can get the answers, I believe it's Senator LaValle. And I am going to continue to go to him and ask him to be the broker to some kind of talk. And I hope that I can count on other legislators to join in that discussion. Nobody will disagree. She has
Okay, if you could just sum it up real quick.
Okay. Nobody will disagree that the county doesn't have the money. Okay? I think that what we're looking for, and what we want you to consider, is a moratorium. October 3rd is right around the corner. It's certainly not going to give people enough time to make the adjustments they have to make. And that's the primary thing, okay? There's one commodity of these routes is consistent variation in demand for service. How many of these variables were reflected in all the spreadsheets that were presented on the public portion of this public hearing? William Watt said, do not put your faith in what statistics say until you have carefully considered what they do not say. Again, I'm going to recommend that we get the drivers involved. Nobody knows the routes like the drivers.
Twin boys that are in Suffolk Community College, and we lost everything in Storm Sandy. So our car was affected, the house was affected, we lost everything. Right now, I currently live in a shelter. I am disabled by drunk driver with no insurance. So I gotta take the bus. Hello. My sons have to take the bus. We, as a person of color, I still am, I'm an American. We come in many colors, and that's what makes America, America and the greatest country in the world. So just on Facebook alone, just to see that young man who worked in the cafeteria, who had his arm blown off, that's just reprehensible. But maybe if he was on the bus, I hate to say that, but you kind of think that way when you have children. My daughter lives, and my granddaughter and her husband live where that bus is going to be cut, one of the 71s. And just looking at how the feeder lines, you're talking about a body. Suffolk County is a body, and it's not just Suffolk County. We are Long Island. We're the best island in the world, I believe. We are Long Island. It's not Nassau and Suffolk. Maybe if you guys kind of join up Nassau and Suffolk County, that would disperse some of the monies. My father was a bus driver in Nassau County 37 years. And it was, at that time, fabulous. It was MSBA, Metropolitan Suburban Transit Authority. And they would run it every 7 minutes. And if you had a problem, a white car would show up. And there wouldn't be any problems. You actually had the windows that were open, and you could smoke on the bus. And not for smoking, but I'm just saying, it was a different time. I've lived on Long Island my whole life, more than half a century. So just to actually see that you guys are going to be cutting the bus routes. We just got them. Are you kidding me? Please. I mean, we need them extended. We need rapid routes. We need you to start before 8 o'clock in the morning when people have to be at work and in class at 8 o'clock in the morning. We need for not us to go to work and not have a way to come home. I worked in the mall when I was a kid and in high school. And to actually be able to go to work and not be able to come home. We're making taxi companies millionaires, and we need to turn that money back into the transit system as it is. I also represent NYCC, New York Communities for Change, and NAACP. I'm a minister at my church, River of Life in Brentwood. We deal with the community. We see a lot. And to have this great body of people, this great America sitting here that came out to actually give you the ideas. It is reprehensible that we have waited till the last minute for you guys to come out and tell us you're cutting the buses. This should have been done and started last year. You should have had some form of whatever you did in the past 2 days, it should have been done last year. You would have had better ideas. You would have saved actually some money. You would have made the system better, and you'd be heroes sitting here instead of looking like, something else. I don't want to say it, but, sub-heroes, the bad guys. And you're not the bad guys. You know, you really aren't. But some of the routes, the way you even have them set up, if you were looking at the board, it looked like a child's drawing. This goes all the way over there and comes back around here. You take the 40, it goes into Pilgrim Psychiatric Center and it does the whole thing. You pick up maybe 1 or 2 people, kind of putting people's lives at jeopardy because, you know, I'm just saying, you are, I've seen some stuff. And then you come back out and you go. 2 hours, 3 hours to get to where you need to go. You know, people that ride the bus should get some kind of tax break because we are, as Jack said, he's with our organization. You're saving on the pollution. Taxpayers should get a tax break if you ride the bus instead of taking the car. You have a great, giant brain, a think tank that is called Long Island. And if you would have started this a year ago, you would really be the heroes today. We would be commending you instead of everyone. I know you're going to go home and feel really terrible. I'll call your wives, your girlfriends, your significant others and tell them to give you some hugs because you've gotten kind of beat up in the past 2 days. But it's because we are frustrated. You know, that I listened to the young lady say about it. I don't have my glasses. Sorry, I'm pretending to be young right now. So I don't have my glasses. But she spoke about the welfare to work and the gentleman and how that's going to be affected. You have people that live in the shelters that work for $2 in food stamps per meal per day. I mean, that's a whole other story. That pay $8,000 to live in a room. Okay, maybe you should kind of cut that and switch some of that to the buses because now they can't get to work. So what are you going to do then? So it really is a giant snowball effect. This is going to stink all the way to God's nose, and I feel sorry for you guys then. But for the most part, this can be done to be cut in the way that it's going to be cut. I cannot have my twin sons, who are not the type of gentlemen with pants on the ground. Sorry guys, pull your pants up. It's disgusting. But they're gentlemen. And for them to be, one's a teacher and one's a writer. And I cannot see, my daughter's a chef. I cannot see that they're going to be not able to graduate because we can't catch the buses. And I can't blame Storm Sandy. I have to blame where it goes. It is, you know, like putting the cart before the animal. Let's do this right. You have time. I may be out of time, but you've got time. Let's get it done.
I'm not going to repeat myself. You know, I saw you guys yesterday, and a lot of people have said the same things that I've said. I think that the point of these meetings were to find solutions or to find alternatives, but there haven't been a lot of questions that have been answered. We don't know what's going to happen if this SCAT grant isn't around. We don't know what routes are supposed to take up the slack. We have no idea what routes may be restored if funding does come back. We don't know what happens to our STOA funds if we cut these routes. There are a lot of what ifs and not enough answers for us to go. In my opinion, I don't think that anybody should feel comfortable moving forward with these cuts and say Suffolk County did the job they needed to do to provide the most efficient cuts. I don't think anyone could have pride in that statement or feel confident in that statement because it's not true. I think that the person that spoke before me really did hit the nail on the head. DPW is not reaching out to the think tank that is the transit system, the transit riders, and the transit operators. Suffolk County Transit hasn't been spoken to. I know that the operator on the East End will be spoken to. I remember speaking to John Carretta 3 years ago about right-sizing vehicles and how it could save Suffolk County money. And when I said, why haven't we done it, he said the county said no. We are not speaking to the people that actually are on the ground. Darnell, I appreciate that you went out and you took the pictures and you rode those routes, but you're not a bus rider. Nobody that sat in the meetings with the county and the community were bus riders, aside from 2 people. How can you sit here and tell me what's best for me as a bus rider if you don't ride the bus? You can't.
Exactly.
There needs to be bus riders at the table when decisions
Exactly.
are made. There need to be drivers at the table when decisions are made. And our operators need to be on this board. The fact there's not a rider representative, a driver representative, and an operator representative is a slap in the face. And for, once again, this county to come and say, this is what's best for Suffolk County Transit without actually talking to Suffolk County Transit, which is us, who pay the salaries that pay for the buses to go out. It's all our tax money, whether it's federal tax money, whether it's state money, whether it's county money. We pay the taxes. We should have a say. Moving forward, as I said yesterday, we're calling for a moratorium. No bus cuts in 2016, wait till 2017, wait until after you do the full system analysis and find out if there's a way, instead of maybe, the 9:54 S45 that shows up 3 minutes after the train leaves Smithtown, maybe we should fix some of those inconsistencies with the MTA before we start cutting routes that are bringing people to our main money-making routes like the 66, the 63, the 92. We need to do a deeper analysis on these routes. 58. We need to do a deeper analysis of what this means for Suffolk County, because at the end of the day, when 45 drivers lose their job, when 420 bus riders lose their routes, all of those families, that's 420 families, we're not counting the bigger impact, and that's the problem. So, moratorium 2016, no bus cuts.
As you can see, I'm here in my workclothes. I take 2 buses and I walk a half an hour to work every day. It takes me about 4 hours just to get to work. I work at 3 o'clock and I get up at 11 o'clock. If I didn't have my mother to pick me up, I would have had nothing. I just got my first apartment. I would lose that because I don't have transportation. I really think that everything needs to, the buses breaking down, me standing in the heat, and all types of things. It's just, everything needs to, there has to be a solution to this issue. I'm sure plenty of people, I have friends that take buses. I'm a CNA. I've worked hard to get to where I am. I'm trying to push forward and go to school and become a nurse. There's a lot of things in life you need to think about. Everybody here, sitting here, they have different issues. I just wish that everything would, I really think we shouldn't even be here. We should be getting more bus routes. And in less time. I had to wait an hour at Forum Plaza, the worst place in the world, I feel like, because there's horribleness all around me. I don't know. I'm heartbroken.
What's up with everybody here? Everybody just pretty much said everything I didn't want to say. I do want to touch on a couple of things. Like Nassau County Sewing, which I do agree with, and stuff they need to do, they need to do flexi routing on most of their routes. If you're going to cut it, implement flexi routing, implement it now. Why? It's cost effective. Less stress on DPW's budget, and more benefit for those that you are cutting. Let's do Mastic Shirley and Mastic Beach. You're going to cut from 4 buses to 1, really? You're going to have all those people go on one bus instead of bus being, oh, where's a bus? Well, they have to pick up all those people who can't get to those other routes. Why? Because you're going to cut from 71 to 70 to 78. I take the 71 pretty much every Saturday. A lot of people don't pay. Why? Because everybody comes from another route and has a transfer. It has like the most transfers. I rode for 2 round trips with one of the drivers I know. Everybody has to have that 71 to go somewhere. It's college, the train station, to probation, to parole. It's an artery. You can't cut an artery. You cut an artery, it's like people can't go anywhere. It's dead. That was here earlier talking about in Babylon. And he's right. Routes needs to be combined. If you're going to cut, combine at least. Have something for us to look at and just before scaring us, In general, like I said, there are areas, there are routes that need to be cut, like the 31. I rode it once in 20 years. I was the only passenger. Another route that is also low performing, 10D&E. Though it does go through areas that are important in some senior areas, but it's, like I said, it should either be merged or combined or flexi routing to serve those who do need it on call service. 10A, another route that's hardly ever used. I may have used it once. I had to go to a friend's house for a party. They had to drive me back to the train station. Why? Barely runs, barely gets people. The 90. Though used, a lot of seniors need it. Similar to the 1B. You're trapping people on the 1B route. You're going to be trapping people at Tanner Park. How are they going to get to their doctor's appointments, the IGA in Copaig, and to the bus that connects to Town Hall in Babylon? And you're trapping people down on Montauk Highway. And then all the other routes, you know, which are either hourly, every 90 minutes, like the S20, depending on which direction you're going. What's gonna happen? They're all gonna be just stuck, either waiting on overpriced cabs, Social Security checks, even though the cabs, so trying to get one of their friends to give them a ride over. You know, there's gotta be a solution. If you're gonna cut, give them alternatives. If not, don't cut nothing at all. That's my story. Thanks.
A lot of folks that were here today, it was packed, and yesterday was pretty packed too over in Riverhead. I said the same thing, and a lot of folks are the bus drivers, and I think we all know that they have some great ideas. They really do. Sat in the meetings with you guys over the past couple of months, and thank you for holding them. Trying to get the feeling from all sorts of community groups, advocates, disabled communities, things of that sort, and from riders. I think it's very important that happen. You know, and just following this over the past couple months, and I don't think there's one legislator that wants bus cuts to happen at all. You know, nobody wants it to happen. I do appreciate the fact that Suffolk County is in quite a bit of a financial problem right now. We all know that. You're looking to cut $4 million. I've looked across the country. I've seen a lot of mass transit systems. Small areas in Suffolk County, 1.5 million people. I've never seen something quite like it. That's putting it nicely. I read the buses here and there. We've spoken about in the past how it doesn't sync with MTA, and that's being worked on. How some buses should be right-sized because we're talking about, you know, 29 people a day or something of that sort. We're working on that. That's great. The map. To see the individual routes. If I want to go on the 7D or E, which are two separate routes, by the way, you know, as are the 10D and E, they're separate routes. So it's really 10 routes being cut, not 8. Okay, if you look at the map, you don't know where the stops are, you don't know anything. My 7-year-old drove that map. We're working on the app. I heard that 2 years ago at Car Freedom. We're working on it. That's great. I don't understand how an RFP can go out. I think there's an RFP due for origin and destination due by the 21st of October, and we're talking about cuts on the 3rd. Not to get all Donald Rumsfeld, but you don't know what you don't know. So how can you cut them? It just does not make any sense at all. I still have my lunch sitting there from earlier because my bus was late here. I kind of appreciate the irony, you know. I spent $10, good sandwich, BLT, all that. I'm paying sales tax for that. Now, if that didn't come, I'd have to pay 7 to 15 to whatever it may be for a cab to get here, because this is important. I don't pay any sales tax on that. You cut the routes rather than expanding it. What about the downtowns, the recreation, things of that sort? You have a 70 that goes down to Smith Point County Park. The 71, I mean, we can talk about that all day, all the destinations that it hits. But the 260 Stony Brook students that live in North Shirley now on the Dowling campus. They have potential to be stranded. I see these people on the bus. I talk to them. You know, we're looking at, Dick Kubek said earlier, 400 daily rider folks based on the 130,000 rides that will be lost a year on here. It's more than that. You have some people that will go visit their grandfather at Long Island State Veterans Home once a month. Bring their kid to the dentist at Stony Brook University once every 2 months, something of that sort. We need to make sure that these are taken care of. It's too early to cut these routes when we don't know what we don't know yet. One other thing, I know time, and I know you guys are tired. Everybody's tired this week. It's a long, short week. You always hear about the flight of the millennials. You know, the millennials are leaving. The millennials. I left. I'm 37 years old. I left a couple of years ago, went to Arizona for 6, 7 years, beautiful public transit, very hot, you know, very hot. Beautiful public transit system. Millennials and aging seniors, you know, 60 and above, that don't want to be car dependent. They don't want to be car dependent. They want reliable transportation. They want to be able to work while they're going there. One other thing, 33 seconds. We don't know where these transfers are happening. When we dealt with the Nassau bus cuts last year, which thankfully now are mostly restored, you know, it made me think, one of their routes, the S62, the most transfers from that bus to any Long Island Railroad train. Really a way for them to get there. Do we know which buses, how many are transferring at all these train stations? Every bus route that's going to be cut transfers to a Long Island Railroad station, at least one. Some will go to 3 of them. We need to look at these things before they happen. To make these cuts before that analysis is taken care of is just irresponsible. Thank you.
Yeah, so the meeting is still going on right now, and that is it for this Piney News. It'll be up later when I get home. Probably not until tomorrow at this rate. But obviously, I'm glad it was a great turnout. A lot of good speakers, including the Long Island Bus Drivers Union, actually did a pretty good job tonight. So that is it. And the fight goes on, man. The fight goes on. But me and all these other people, we don't intend on going anywhere. I don't want to live in New Jersey where it's 95 degrees every day in the summer. It's not happening. So that is it. Stay strong, Long Island. Have a good night.